Okay, Comedy Accelerator Workshop recap. Week 22, second week of January 2026. I moved into the podcast room, hopefully get better sound. I know it's echoey out in my huge living room with all tile and very little real furniture yet. So yeah, there were 25 people this week. Really interesting week, I thought, because we made some changes structurally to how I did the workshop. We still did the opening half hour of career talk that may go down to 15 minutes or 20 minutes. A lot of times it ends up me talking about career. People, again, in Austin aren't really sort of expansive careers, so it's pretty much local scene and there's not that much new in it. So may try to capture that 15 minutes and use it for performance time. The second thing that was different was that we first did writing groups. So everybody broke into groups of 4. Everybody brought a minute, and the idea is that you do a minute script. The other 3 people listen as your writing staff. Immediately hit it with punch-ups, act-outs, and tags. And if there are any problems in it about it being confusing in the setup or anything like that, then they help you clean that up. So it's a speed exercise of 20 minutes or so where everybody gets a chance to be in the talent seat and everybody else is the writing group. And the more we practice that, I think the better we'll get at it. I also want to get people to start posting their sets, their 1 minutes in the Facebook group, the private Facebook group, because that way everybody can just sort of leisurely look at your stuff and hit you with feedback there. So we've got to find ways to expand beyond the 2 hours of the workshop because there's so many people that are coming now. We had 25 people this time. We can't get that much done where everybody gets a chance to be, directly focused on and get feedback. So we're going to try to expand that. So in the career half hour, I talked about the fact that I've started to go out and do stand-up in the Austin scene again, which has been a long time since I've done that. I think the last time I performed in Austin was way pre-pandemic, so it was maybe 2020 when I headlined the Velveeta Room, something like that. Austin always has a weird multi-scene going on, and now it's got the Comedy Mothership and the Rogan people and the Kill Tony people. Then it's got the still traditional Austinites, kind of what I would call the hipsters. Sometimes I call it no joy comedy, where they drain a lot of the emotion and do comedy pretty deadpan. That's still here. And what I'd like to do is start a third scene. I'd really like to start a scene that's more professionally focused. It's not that I want to throw back to the 80s or to just punch only kind of comedy, but I would like for people to be able to go beyond what they're getting in the local cafes and coffee shops and the local scene and bars. And the people who don't want to go over to the Rogan sphere and do that kind of comedy, even though it's definitely got a market here, or they don't want to do exclusively that kind of comedy. They want to try to start doing things that can work maybe in regular clubs, like in Funny Bone Chains and improvs and things like that, where you can go and do a friendlier kind of comedy, but it's still very punch heavy, you're there to entertain. You're not there to sort of meander and vibe and sort of let them experience something like experience you or do influencer kind of work, but you're there to entertain. And so what I did this week was I realized that I sometimes adjust to the scene and I start doing more idiosyncratic stuff, more more esoteric jokes and things like that. But really, I'm trained to be a middle of the country headliner. And so that's what I did. I did two Destiny's gigs, and the last one was the 4th time I've been up now around town. I just adjusted and opened with my sleep bit, which I'll post in the shorts after this so that you can see it because we use it during the workshop. So, and because Austin, I think, doesn't get enough professional feedback, they end up doing pretty bad comedy in a lot of ways. It's very adjusted to shock and unnecessary profanity, which I don't care about profanity at all. But if it's just in there, if you're just doing, shock and grossness without real punchlines, it's really hard on the audience. And I've heard lots of civilian types in Austin, people who aren't comedians but have somehow wandered into an open mic or even a book show, and they just find it horrific. Because if you're going to do like really toxic topics, like there was a guy who did a bit, or tried to do a bit, the night that woman got shot in Minnesota, and he went up and started talking about it. And this was a coffee shop, or was it a bar? There was a little bit of both, but it wasn't the right vibe, and he didn't have it built. If you're going to do really difficult topics like that, you better have sophisticated comedy skills, because otherwise you just come off looking really bad and you offend people rather than entertaining people. So again, this is always something I deal with in Austin. But the idea is that the accelerator gains more traction, gets more people, and becomes like a third scene where we can build up a more entertainment-centric, in some ways more artful, but hopefully also a more friendly place to hang out and build a real community of people helping each other in the entertainment business. Stand-ups tend to become isolated, and they have to scratch for every little opportunity they get, and it starts to build up resentments in the community. And I've seen this over and over again. It's different in every city, but here in Austin it can get pretty backbitey, and I don't like it. I'd rather be able to go out and just enjoy the scene. I think it's why the pro comics who live around here, like the road comics, don't hang out on the scene anymore, because it's just inundated with people who don't really understand what's going on in comedy, aren't adapting into it, and it's just not that much fun to be in the community. So let's make it fun. That's what I talked about in the workshop, is like, hey, let's network with each other, practice this stuff, see if we can build a different vibe in the community, and go from there. So next up, we turned to active workshopping. Again, we did the small staff writing for 4 people. Then I went up, and before that I went up and did my, like a minute and a half or so of my sleeping bit, which felt very bare and very not entertaining as like some of the other stuff I've done, because it's not really built for comics. It's built for regular adults in relationships and marriages, stable people who just want to be able to laugh at clever. Like I will never not write clever. I don't write things that are just pandering. But also, it's about sleeping, and it's a 15-minute bit. I can probably make it a full one-person show because there's so much weird about sleeping, and it's such an important topic. But it's not something comics are going to dig, and I felt that when I was doing it. Then we did a new variation, and this is a thing I'm going to try to do like as the core thing for the workshop going forward. I threw people up on stage back to back. They just lined up on the right side of the room, and they each got a minute. And they were supposed to have brought something in that was ready to be performed, that they had written, and that felt was, at a good place. And I immediately, the first person went up, Joseph went up, did fine, but I didn't say anything. And then the next person went up and started in, it was Josh. And I watched it for a minute, and I'm like, no, this isn't working. Like, just going up and watching people who still have dysfunction in their show, even if it's a minute. And that means dysfunction on script, like the script isn't tight, the jokes aren't played out, they're not using the strong punchline tags, act out structure, they're just not finding the script yet. Or performance, that they don't know how to take over the room, like they don't know how to do all the things that make people laugh just with performance, with their voice and their face and their body movements and the act outs. If they don't have that, their character may not be fully developed, or it may be unlikable. It's really hard to do comedy for people when you're showing an unlikable character. And that doesn't always in any way mean that the person is unlikable, but the character that they're showing is unlikable. And I'm not sure they even really understand that a lot of times. So I give them feedback on that. And the fourth thing is connectivity. Those are my 4 pillars of stand-up: script, performance, character, and connectivity. Connectivity means you are in the moment, connecting to the audience. It's not just you up there talking and monologuing into the ether. It's you're doing eye contact. You're doing movements towards people. You're asking questions. It's real, authentic communication. And that's one of the superpowers of stand-up that makes it work. It's public address, but it's right inside people's brains when you do it correctly. You create this sort of intimacy corridor with them, a real instant intimacy, which is what they call it in psychology. And if you don't do that, the audience drifts. They emotionally drift. They don't find you as interesting, and you're not riveting the room, which is what you need to do in order to do really good stand-up. So I just started when people started going, if they hit a certain dysfunction that I felt like was pushing their set off the rails, I stopped them and I said things like, hey, I want to hear a punchline about what you just said. Like if you say a noun, for example, if you say anything like, some guy went by on a bike, and people think bike, but they think bicycle, maybe they think motorcycle. You've got to actually write comedy about every piece of information and sub-information that you give the audience, which I don't think people really understand also about writing verbal script. Really good stand-up is so dense because whenever you get out a piece of information, the information needs to be stimulating, and you hit it instantly with a punchline. So instead of he was on a bike, he was on a electric bike that probably cost $5,000 and was painted pink and still had rust on it or something. Like you give it some kind of comedy texture, and you can't let yourself just talk and stand up without drenching everything in comedy and stimulation. Keep it interesting. So we started working on a lot of that stuff, and everybody has something. Some people were through all those four things. Some people had different dysfunctions, and I just stopped them. I'm like, here's the answer. Here's what's doing wrong. Here's the answer. Now do it again. And that worked really well. You got to see what the dysfunction was. I labeled it and identified it, gave them the fix, and then they got to fix it in the moment and try it again. For some people, it took a little more than others. Like I think it was Emmanuel who was doing an act out, but he wasn't acting. And this is a very common thing with early stand-ups, is that they'll do a character, but they won't really do the character. They'll do about 4% or 20% of the character, which means the voice isn't unique, the movement, they're not really in it, there's no emotion. So I had him go back and redo it 3 times. Like he kept not amplifying it. And finally, somebody made a suggestion about, hey, do it with a Mexican accent. He was doing a Spanish accent. And so he did, and because he was talking about his family, and he redid it and it hit. And that's what you usually find with all these things. If you fix them in the moment and then you redo it, it hits. And you can viscerally feel the difference, which I think is a much better way of learning than talking about it in the abstract and giving people 4 or 5 minutes of feedback across a bunch of different things that they can't really remember and can't apply right away. So we're going to use that from now on. And we got through 15 people in 45 minutes. So if we can rescue another 30 minutes or so out of the class, then maybe we can get through 20 or 25 people, which I think is valuable. I think everybody who shows up should get a chance to go up. So there you go. That was week 22 of the workshop. We're getting there. It feels like it's got some more energy. I'm excited about it. Super fun for me when that happens. And people hung out afterwards, probably for 30 minutes outside. We also talked about producing shows that we're going to try to we are going to put together a comedy accelerator show. We may do it multiple nights at different venues. And I'm encouraging everybody to get up with me and talk to me and network with me, because I'm not going to produce those shows. I'm not going to produce those shows. I don't have the bandwidth. And I've done this for so long that it doesn't really interest me to do that kind of production anymore. But it's a great skill to have. So we're going to find people who want to get up with me and network about this. I will totally advise on it. I will come out to the shows. I will hang out, but I just don't want to do any extra work. The workshop is already quite a bit of work. So we're going to find people who have friends who want to talk to bar owners, who want to produce these shows, learn all the skills, learn how to book the comics, learn how to tech everything out, learn how to troubleshoot. Those are all great producer skills and very professionally useful in all forms of entertainment. I kind of advise everybody to do producer work, even if you just want to be a flaky comic and be talent and hang out. It teaches you to respect the entire enterprise as a business. So we're going to do that. Again, we're trying to get more energy into the accelerator, get it more known in the Austin scene, and really, make it a positive place for people to hang out. So we'll keep going with this next week. Hit us up, hit me up. If you have any questions, concerns, or ideas, I'm always open to stuff. I'm just sort of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks and what's fun. So we'll keep at it.